Hello, YouTube, and welcome to Jonny Skywatcher Live, the show where I talk about movies, TV, gaming, whatever I feel like it. I'm your host, Jonny Skywatcher. If you don't know who I am, this is my YouTube channel. Like I said, I like talking about movies, TV, gaming, all that good stuff. Sometimes I touch on just small things in the news, maybe major things in the news if something ever big happens. Okay, so our first thing that I'm going to talk about today is Tenet's box office. So, this is, this article, I should say, not the entire story, but this article is coming from Variety. Tenet hits $200 million globally, and that's obviously for the full length of time it's been out, not just this last weekend. Despite lackluster US box office. So, Tenet crossed 200 million mark globally, propped up by overseas grosses while US cinemas struggle to draw audiences during the coronavirus pandemic. They say that it made about 6.7 million in the US and Canada during the second weekend of release, which its first weekend it made like 20 million. So this is representing a 29% drop compared to opening weekend. I think it's a little bit more than 29%, isn't it? If you use the 20 million figure. Initially, Warner Bros., the studio Tenet, touted a 20 million debut, but a closer dissection of those numbers revealed that were heavily spun to include weekday preview screenings in the long holiday weekend. Actually, I didn't hear about this. I did hear about how they keep combining US and Canada instead of just giving the numbers for US, which is Warner Brothers trying to make themselves look better than they really are. In reality, Tenet only made about $9 million between Friday and Sunday. Oh, that's interesting. So it only really did $9 million on its opening weekend, and then 6.7 million. Not quite as good. And that's the interesting thing too as well about this is that Warner Brothers is basically not telling us everything. So I guess normally it says traditionally studios share box office information on a daily basis, but that hasn't been the case with Tenet. The studio took a bold bet since Tenet was the first major movie to debut during the pandemic, and Warner Bros. Claims that it wants to ensure that reporters and rivals don't unfairly contextualize the results and label them a financial flop. Because I had noticed that if you go to if you go to Box Office Mojo, they haven't had the figures for the daily, so I was wondering why that was, and now we know it's because Warner Bros. Isn't giving that information. If you look at Box Office Mojo, go to Tenet, there is no information for domestic daily, just for the weekends. And it turns out even this information is not quite right, because it's saying, $20.2 million over the Labor Day weekend. Right here is a big sign that that's not accurate, because it says, 4th to the 6th, not counting Monday for Labor Day weekend, is 20.2 million. And then, but Labor Day weekend's the exact same. It should be more, not the exact same figure. And then here it says 6.7. So according to Variety, they only actually really made 9 million. They did make 20.2 million, but just not in these days. They weren't counting, they made it look bigger by counting all the weekdays prior to the weekday preview screenings. But I would think that don't movies already do that? They already are opening earlier in the week to try to make their opening weekends look a lot bigger than they necessarily are. So I think that's somewhat of a standard thing to do. And I totally forgot to do something. Okay. So yeah, Tenet is not I don't think is doing as well as Warner Brothers hoped it would do. And I think that's telling in the fact that they moved Wonder Woman, and I don't think we've heard about Dune yet, but I would we're most people are assuming that Dune is going to move its release date. It hasn't yet, but we'll have to just wait and see on that, I guess. Let me see if this says anything else. All right, let's keeps going on. Roughly 65 to 75% of the theaters in the U.S. have reopened, but major markets like New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco remained closed. And I can report that that's true. In New York City, there's still no movie theaters open. I think they are just. I don't know if it started yet, but I think it has. The indoor dining has just limited indoor dining has started up in New York City, but still nothing on movie theaters. I think the only thing we've heard is Cuomo saying that he doesn't want to open up movie theaters because, and I said Cuomo, he's the governor of New York, in case you don't know. He doesn't want to open up movie theaters because they're not as essential, according to him. So Warner Brothers says it's optimistic that grosses will improve as new markets open for business. Tenet played in 100 more locations than it did last weekend, amounting to almost 3,000 venues in total. And the thing is, I would expect their strategy for Tenet to be to keep it in theaters for much longer than it would have if it came out last year. You know, I think I wouldn't be surprised if it stayed in theaters for more than 3 months or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if Tenet is still in theaters in January or February, whereas it would have been most out of most theaters by then. Especially if movies keep getting pushed back, because you know, for really big wide releases right now we just have, you know, Black Widow, which may or may not come out in November, and then Wonder Woman, which is set for the end of the year at Christmas Day, and then Dune, which I'm fully expecting Wonder Woman and Dune to move. And let me just check Box Office Mojo to see if there's any other huge wide releases. There are other wide releases, but I haven't heard of any of these movies. I'm not going to count them on the same level as Tenet. See, let's just go. Let me see. I'm going to look at. I don't think there's anything else in October. I think Wonder Woman before it moved was going to be the only other thing in October. Does this even say? Okay, let me just see. Let me just decrease the size some. There we go. Now I can see it. Two Hearts, wide release. Never heard of it. Untitled Universal Event Comedy from Universal Pictures. Okay, I think that's a leftover, including this untitled Lord and Miller animation. Pretty sure, yeah, it's saying October 23rd, 2020. Yeah, pretty sure that's not coming out. Not on that date. Okay, so that's October. I just want to check November. November still has Black Widow. I fully expect that to be moved back. It's possible it could stay there. You know, Disney does need the money. Or, you know, maybe even move. I would think if I were Disney and I were told that we needed to release Black Widow this year, I would move it to the end of November, or at least to the middle of November. Right now it's at the beginning of November, and I just don't think movie theaters are going to be there unless they just they want to kind of do something similar to Tenet and just keep it in there as long as possible before Wonder Woman hits. That's possible too, because if Black Widow is competing with Wonder Woman later, it's gonna divide the box office, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. And going back, wow, there's quite a few things in box office mojo's information that's untitled. Deep Water. Oh yeah, I forgot about No Time to Die. So that's 3, and as well as Soul. So Soul, No Time to Die, and Black Widow, as well as Dune. But Dune is also Warner Brothers, so I'd be really surprised if they didn't push it back. The Empty Man, I don't know what that is. And then finally, let's just look at December's release schedule. Free Guy, I don't think that's going to be a huge movie, as well as some of these others. West Side Story. Coming to America, I wonder if that's still going to come out. And then Dune is still listed. And then Wonder Woman 1984. So that's only like 5 major movies still set to come out this year. And we don't even know if they're all going to actually come out. Crazy. Studio has been encouraged by the turnout for premium formats such as IMAX and Dolby Cinema. IMAX screens accounted for 23 million of Tenet's box office haul. I'm assuming that's internationally. But that's a lot, still, from just IMAX screens. But it makes sense with I think a movie like Tenet. A lot of people who are going to go see it want to see it in the biggest screen possible. Tenet also, it brought in $10 million in China. And the interesting thing about that, if we go to Box Office Mojo's international information, which of course isn't really totally up to date. So let's just click China. So I believe the weekend Tenet came out was, nope, this one. So yeah, like they said Tenet brought in 10 million China. I'm assuming this last weekend. This is the weekend before where Tenet came out in China and it made almost $30 million, but the 800 in its third week made more money. I mean, yeah, because it's a Chinese film. And big Chinese films tend to make more money at the Chinese box office. No surprise there. So then looking at this current weekend, Mulan was actually on top. It made $23 million, which of course I'm assuming people are going to look at and say, oh, I think I already read an article how they're saying it didn't do that well. If I were Disney, I'd be actually glad it made that amount of money, because as much as people talk about Disney changing Mulan to try to go after the Chinese market, I don't know why they would think that, because if I were working at Disney, I would tell them, don't expect this movie to do well in China, because the Chinese are going to look at this movie. They didn't like the animated film, and they got their own version of Mulan. You know, there are other Mulan movies that are Chinese made that they have. They're not dying for a Disney made Mulan adaptation. And third, I think that a lot of them look at this movie and see it as, you know, basically fake Chinese. It's not a real Chinese movie, even though it does have Chinese actors. It's still an American made movie. So I wouldn't think that it would ever do as well as some people seem to think that it had the potential to do. And then the 800 came in second, of course, and then Tenet in its second week only made $10.3 million. Interesting. It landed behind Mulan in war epic The 800. Mass inspired ticket sales from theaters despite 90% of locations reopening. So most of the theaters in China are open. In fact, if you look at the how much the 800 has made, like, because you're looking at all these other numbers like 20 million, 10 million, whatever, and then look at 800, how much it's made in total, 390 million, which not $1 billion, but still, if a movie makes 390 million in the US, it's a big deal. So it being able to make $390 million in China is pretty big deal. And then it kind of goes on and on. Okay, I think so yeah, I think it's interesting that Warner Brothers isn't talking about their figures. I think they're trying to sort of hide it, and I'm curious if we're ever going to find out exactly how it did day to day. I mean, I like looking at Box Office Mojo of past movies sometimes and comparing it, so it'd be kind of lame if they didn't eventually let us know what the day to day figures were. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And let me just click a couple things. Okay, next story. Moving on. Jeez. I have to do this myself. I say like there's ever been anybody else helping me with this. Okay, so this is coming from Deadline. This I kind of feel like is more slightly rumor than actual fact. It hasn't been confirmed by the studio or anything. But Jonathan Majors joins Marvel Cinematic Universe, lands major role in next Ant-Man movie. I'm not really familiar with this actor. I know it says that he's the star in this recent HBO series Lovecraft Country, which I've seen the trailers for. I'm not sure if I've seen him in anything else, but Deadline is reporting that he has been cast in the next Ant-Man movie. Studio had no comment, but sources close to the project say he's likely to play the supervillain King the Conqueror. Now, if you're not familiar with who King the Conqueror is, he is a blue guy from the future. I'm mostly familiar with him from Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, an animated series, which lasted, I think, only 2 or 3 seasons. And I think it's all available on Disney Plus. So, yeah, he's a blue guy. He's from the future. Usually, I think he's more of an Avengers level threat. So it would be kind of interesting if they put him in a Ant-Man film. Just kind of dropped him in there. I think the only reason, I think the reason to maybe think that would be because Ant-Man in the WAPs did kind of tie into Avengers Endgame with the whole time portals and everything, and Kang is a time traveling villain, and with I guess with Ant-Man it could delve even more into the microverse and something to do with that. But it kind of comes off as fan casting to me. I'm not sure how much I'm willing to believe this. And then I think they also say something about sources add that, like with so many new characters in the MCU, there could be a twist with how the character is featured in future films. But as of now, he's likely to be one of the main villains in the next installment in the franchise. So one of the things I'm not sure about this, why I think looking at this, I don't necessarily believe that these two things would both be true. That he would be cast in the movie as one of the lead roles and be King the Conqueror. I kind of feel like if he were King the Conqueror being cast in this movie, it would be more as a sort of Thanos-like role, and maybe like he's kind of there for part of the time, but not as another lead, not as the main one of the main villains or the main villain. And it would be safe for, you know, like sometime at the either in the culmination of this phase or in the phase 5, because Kang is an Avengers level threat. He's not just an Ant-Man villain. The other possibility is that this actor is cast as one of the lead roles, and then he's just playing some other role that's completely different from Kang the Conqueror, which I think is honestly think is more likely. And also, we haven't heard anything really about this movie yet. I don't think it's even been officially. Maybe it has been officially confirmed. It's definitely confirmed that they've been working on it, but you know, we don't have a title or anything like that, and no release date. So this is like this. It's still way in the future, so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, are you excited for the possibility of Kang the Conqueror in Ant-Man? I was trying to say Ant-Man and the Wasp 3. What would even the title be? Is it going to be? I mean, they're not going to title Ant-Man 3. I've seen people suggest Ant-Man and the Wasp and someone else. I don't know about that. I believe in the comics, the daughter Candace is Stature or something like that. So I've seen people suggest Ant-Man and the Wasp and Stature. I feel like 3 names is too much. Two is fine, but like 3 names like that, I don't know. So, do you like the idea of Kang the Conqueror being in an Ant-Man movie instead of an Avengers movie? Or are you okay with the idea of having him introduced and then like him showing up in other movies? Let me know in the comments below. And then moving on to my last topic of the day. If I can click on things and get it to work. Let's talk about DC fandom. So, if you were unaware, DC fandom actually had a second day. I know I think they moved some things to the second day, so they had another day. This wasn't like the first one where they streamed the thing. I think the first one they basically streamed all these panels and then they repeated it again, right? It was a live stream. This was more of just on demand. Like they put everything up for 24 hours, I guess. So a lot of it was covering a lot of it was covering the TV shows. And then interestingly, they had some issues apparently with the website because they'd experienced some technical difficulties, and they tweeted out the Riddler strikes. DC fandom is experiencing a brief pause, but we'll post an update when we're back up and running. Some of the things that were there were no like major trailers or announcements or anything, but they did announce a couple things. Let's see. Doom Patrol got renewed for a 3rd season, which is cool. I watched the 1st season and I really liked it. I haven't got a chance to see the 2nd season. Let's see. Black Lightning. They had I did watch the panel with Batwoman. They didn't show any footage or even any artwork or anything. Harley Quinn I saw online is not yet renewed for a 3rd season. Apparently it's just going to come down to budget issues whether or not it gets renewed. So they're still negotiating it sounds like. And yeah, there was mostly just panels. Also check out like Nerd Report did a nice rundown of things we learned about. Doom Patrol getting a 3rd season. Young Justice is getting a 4th season. I still need to watch the 3rd season. It's just there's just so many streaming services, and I only have so much money. And yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Titans is getting a 3rd season. I don't know if we knew that yet or not, but Well, it's getting a third season, and they also had like all the CW shows there. The Flash. I think that on the Flash, it was an extended version of the panel that they had in the first fandom, and I think that one also had the same trailer where they took footage from the last episode they were filming before they got shut down and turned it into a trailer. Um, let me think. Yeah, let me just say something about that first. So the Flash. So I've been watching. I'm still watching the Flash, kind of. Basically, after season 3, I would say I stopped watching when it was airing, and I just catch up when it's on Netflix. And it's sort of a hate watch. I have a love-hate relationship with the Flash. So right now, I still think the show isn't that good. I still kind of keep up with it. Compared to Arrow, I didn't even watch the last 2 seasons. I just completely lost total interest. The Flash at least has other superheroes who show up on the show, but like the Arrow, I had no interest in, and then that show's over now. And with the Flash, what they were showing is like the footage of that first episode, that last episode they were still filming, and sort of trying to give you an idea where the seasons hopefully goes. What I hope is that if you don't know, Iris is like in a mirror universe, and they're dealing with this. It's not the Mirror Master; it's the Mirror Mistress. So, what I hope is in the first 3 episodes they wrap all of that up, and because that would have been the ending for this season 6, I guess, or whatever season it was, and I really hope they just wrap all of that up and then just move on to the next thing. And I kind of hope they do this at least the same sort of thing where they don't have one main villain for the whole season, because that's one thing that was an improvement with season 6 is it did kind of get split in half, where they kind of wrapped up blood sport, blood work, whatever he was, in the first half of season 6 before they went into Crisis. They kind of wrapped that storyline up, and I kind of hope they do the same thing. In fact, you could do that even more with these like CW shows. That's a huge problem with the CW shows, is they keep dragging it out when they don't need to. And that's one thing when it comes to when it comes to Batwoman. I didn't watch the first season. I just watched the first episode, and not even the whole of the first episode. I couldn't make it through. It was just too dumb. But I have kept up with sort of what's going on with the show, especially with Ruby Rose leaving the show, and then they cast this new character instead of recasting Kate Kane. I have no idea how they're going to get that to work. I don't know. I might watch like the first or 2 episodes of Batwoman season 2 just to see what they do with it, because how are they going to get that to work? I have no idea. You can't just replace the main character in season 2 and then it's not even set up to be replaced. It's not set up at all, because they didn't know they were going to lose the actress. And now they've already said that it's going to be one of the central things is this mystery of what happened to Kate Kane. And this, knowing, I haven't seen the show, but I know this is on top of the mystery of what happened to Bruce Wayne. So my prediction is that in typical CW fashion, they are going to drag out that mystery throughout the entire season 2 until nobody cares anymore. And when they reveal it, it's just going to be a huge groan from audiences. And that is if Ruby Rose even comes back for an episode or 2. I would hope they'd be able to convince her to come back for just for an episode where she is on screen and says, "Yeah, I quit being Batwoman because of this or that." I don't know. I don't know how they do this. I don't know how they do season 2. We'll just have to see, I guess. I don't expect it to be any good. And that's my CW rant for today. I don't think they revealed anything else. Yeah, I think Okay, so let me know what you thought about DC fandom. What do you think about the sort of the DC news in general? Are you looking forward to the movies? What about the CW shows? Are you looking forward to any of them coming back? I know I watched some of the Legends of Tomorrow panel, and it looks like they're introducing a new character. They didn't give any many details, so I don't know if it's an original character or not. But we'll have to wait and see. And I think that's going to be it for me today. Um, let us repeat the YouTube mantra. Please like, comment, and subscribe. But yeah, if you're watching this in the future, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching the whole video, and that's that's the most important thing to me, that you were watching. Feel free to comment something below, even if it's just, hey, I actually watched your video. I'm a person who exists. Other than that, feel free to subscribe or like it as you will. No pressure. And I will see you, if I can get this right, see you in the next video. Bye. Wait. I totally messed that up. Wait, why didn't that work? Oh, I know why that didn't work. Just 1 second. I need to do one thing on the fly. I changed around my documents and I did not double check this. But it should just take just a second or two. Okay, now let's try that.